If you ever find a beach that's completely silent, leave, because silence means the ocean is listening, and it only listens right before it takes someone. This is a story I heard from a friend who used to guide tourists in Goa, and it's about a place they call the Listening Beach. It's a stretch of coastline so beautiful it looks like a postcard, but no locals ever go there after dark. They know better. One evening, a young couple, let's call them Mark and Chloe, rode their rented scooter down a dusty, unpaved road. They were looking for a private spot, away from the crowded tourist traps, a place to camp under the stars. They found it. A perfect, crescent-shaped cove, with sand as white as bone and water so clear you could see the stones on the bottom. As they started setting up their small tent near a cluster of palm trees, they noticed a few local fishermen watching them from the distant cliffs. The fishermen didn't wave, didn't shout a warning. They just stared, their faces unreadable, before turning away and disappearing. Chloe felt a shiver run down her spine. "Maybe we shouldn't be here," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Mark just laughed. "It's just local superstition, babe. They probably want this amazing spot all to themselves." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in fiery shades of orange and purple, something strange happened. There was no wind, not even a slight breeze, yet the sand around their tent began to shift. Tiny rivulets of sand moved on their own, creating intricate, swirling patterns that looked almost like writing. Chloe pointed, her eyes wide. "Did you see that?" Mark squinted, trying to find a rational explanation. "It's probably just the sand settling," he said, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. They thought the beach was empty, but the beach didn't think the same. As dusk deepened into true night, an unnerving stillness fell over the cove. The gentle lapping of the waves, which had been a constant, soothing rhythm, faded away completely. The chirping of crickets in the nearby scrub brush ceased. Even the rustle of the palm leaves was gone. The world had gone mute. It was a profound, suffocating silence, the kind that presses in on your eardrums. "It's so quiet," Chloe whispered, hugging her knees to her chest. Mark, ever the skeptic, stood up and walked towards the shoreline, his phone in hand. "It's perfect," he said, trying to sound brave. "Let's get some spooky footage. My followers will love this." He panned his camera across the eerily calm water, joking about sea ghosts and ancient curses. That's when Chloe screamed. Mark whipped around. She was pointing at the wet sand near the water's edge. A single set of footprints was appearing, one after another, emerging from the dark, silent ocean. They were bare feet, pressing into the sand as if an invisible person was walking out of the sea and heading straight for them. There was no one there. The couple froze, their bravado evaporating into pure, primal fear. Mark fumbled with his phone, turning on the flashlight and pointing its beam at the tracks. The light revealed something even more terrifying. The footprints weren't just appearing, they were deep and filled with a dark, brackish water that didn't seem to soak into the surrounding sand. They were coming out of the ocean. "Mark, we have to go now," Chloe cried, her voice trembling. She started scrambling to pack their things, stuffing everything haphazardly into their bags. But Mark was mesmerized. The vlogger in him had taken over. "This is gold," he muttered, his eyes glued to his phone screen as he filmed the phantom footsteps approaching. "No one will believe this." He was so focused on framing the shot, on capturing the impossible, that he didn't see what was happening right behind him. The camera, however, caught it all. In the corner of the frame, the sand behind Mark began to bulge. A pale, discolored hand, with long yellowed fingernails, pushed its way up through the surface. It was followed by a gaunt arm, draped in rotting seaweed. A shadowy figure started to rise from the sand, its form indistinct but undeniably human-shaped. Its skin was cracked and gray, with grains of sand embedded deep within the fissures, as if it were made of the beach itself. It reached a claw-like hand toward Mark's shoulder. "Mark!" Chloe shrieked. He spun around, but there was nothing there. The figure had vanished, sinking back into the sand as if it had never been. The only evidence was a slight depression in the sand and a lingering foul smell of decay and salt water. That was it. The spell was broken. Terror finally gripped Mark, and he sprinted after Chloe, who was already running toward their scooter. He was barefoot, having kicked off his sandals earlier. It was a fatal mistake. The moment his feet hit the dry sand, it felt wrong. It wasn't soft and yielding anymore. It was thick, heavy and sticky, like wet cement. With each step, the sand clung to his feet and ankles, pulling him down. He stumbled, fighting against the unseen force. "It's got me," he yelled, his voice cracking with panic. He fell face first into the sand, and it was like falling into quicksand. He tried to push himself up, but his hands just sank deeper. He tried to scream for Chloe, but a mouthful of gritty, suffocating sand silenced him. Chloe looked back and saw him sinking. With a desperate cry, she ran back, grabbing his arms. The sand fought her, pulling with an incredible strength, but her adrenaline-fueled panic gave her the power she needed. She dug her fingers under his arms and pulled, screaming his name over and over. With a sickening, squelching sound, he came free. His face was caked in sand, his eyes wild with terror. They didn't look back. They scrambled onto the scooter and sped away from the Listening Beach, leaving their tent, their bags, and a piece of their sanity behind. Back at their brightly lit hotel room, the horror seemed like a distant nightmare. Mark stood under the hot spray of the shower for almost an hour, scrubbing his skin raw. But as he looked at his arms and legs in the mirror, he saw that tiny grains of sand were still there, embedded under the surface of his skin. He scrubbed harder, but they wouldn't come out, and then he saw one of them move. It wasn't a trick of the light. A tiny speck of sand shifted, burrowing deeper into his flesh, like a microscopic parasite. He felt a cold dread creep into his heart. That night, Chloe was jolted awake by a familiar sound, the gentle rhythmic crash of waves against a shore. But that was impossible. Their room was on the 3rd floor, overlooking the bustling city street. She sat up, her heart pounding. Mark was standing by the open window, silhouetted against the moonlight, staring out into the darkness. His posture was rigid, unnatural. "Mark," she whispered. "Are you okay? What are you doing?" He didn't turn, he didn't answer, but a voice did. It was a low, gurgling sound that seemed to come from all around her, a voice that sounded like the ocean itself, whispering from the shadows of the room. He never escaped. It rasped. The words formed from the sigh of a receding tide. The beach took him the moment he stepped onto its shore. Chloe looked at the man by the window, and in the dim light, she saw it. His skin was gray and cracked, and from his eyes, a steady stream of fine white sand trickled down his cheeks like tears. If this story made you think twice before visiting a beach at night, smash that like button and comment "Never alone on the sand" so I know you made it to the end. And if you want more stories that will crawl under your skin, hit subscribe. I have much darker things waiting beneath the tide for you. Thanks for watching.